Listen to the audiobook, The Financier, by Theodore Dreiser, Level B1.
You will find Part 1 in the description and on our channel. Part 2.
It was clear that the fighting wouldn't end anytime soon, and the country required money. Eventually, the state issued a huge home loan of $50 million to be handled by the country's most important financiers. Frank wasn't known well enough for that, but if he could handle even a small part of the loan, he would finally develop a reputation as a broker. Therefore, he hoped very much for the help of a man named Mr. Edward Malia Butler. Mr. Butler was a rich, well-respected contractor managing the construction of sewers and street paving in the city. Also, he had some important political connections and was interested in the streetcar business as well, so he needed Frank's advice on how to buy street railway stocks on the exchange. Once, Frank came to Mr. Butler's house to discuss their business affairs. As he was leaving, a young girl ran in through the front door, nearly knocking the men down on her way. "I apologize, Father," she said shyly. She was 15-year-old Eileen, Mr. Butler's youngest daughter. The men said goodbye and Frank left. For some reason, he couldn't get the bright, lovely young girl out of his mind. What a nice catch for some lucky man, he thought. Her father will surely make him rich one day. Frank was making great progress in the financial world of Philadelphia. Meanwhile, the war slowly came to an end. The Northern Army won, the Southern states were reunited with the rest of the country, and slavery was abolished across the nation. 7. In the end, the state loan business turned out to be a curious compromise. Frank didn't get to manipulate a part of it as he had planned, but still, he managed to make $20,000 on it. He was more than pleased with how things came out, as he was now introduced to the Financial Society of Philadelphia, and built himself quite a name in the financial circles. Now everyone was well aware of who Frank Algernon Cowperwood was. He was even introduced to the governor one day at lunch. His name was mentioned in the papers, and his status grew very quickly. Soon he decided to move into a bigger house. He spoke with his father, and they agreed to build 2 fancy houses next to each other and connect them with a glass passageway. Also, Frank was planning to buy a suitable building for his office. He knew he was going to be very, very rich. Months went by. Lillian became friends with Mrs. Butler, and the families often visited each other. Young Eileen Butler attracted Frank even more now. She was an innocent, romantic girl with a cheerful spirit. Many of her father's colleagues were interested in her, but she found them all boring. Frank, on the other hand, was gentle, polite, and reserved. Eileen often thought just how lucky Lillian was to have him as her husband. Soon, Frank started to do business with George W. Stenner, a man who was to play an important part in his life. Stenner was the new city treasurer. A man of no sharp intelligence, he was rather a puppet in the hands of more important people. At that time, the political life of Philadelphia was controlled by Senator Mark Simpson, Edward Malia Butler, and Henry A. Mollenhauer, a coal dealer and investor. The public knew nothing of it, and the newspapers did not pay attention. As he had dealings with Mr. Butler, Frank had been involved in speculation without even knowing it. Mr. Butler and his friends participated in many illegal activities, and now they were Frank's clients. He wanted to please them because they were important politicians and had plenty of money. They found out about which deals would be more profitable on the exchange, and then asked Frank to buy certain shares for them. By that time, he was known as a very reliable financier in Philadelphia's political circles. 8. After the Cowperwoods moved to the new house, they decided to host a housewarming party. Of course, the Butlers were invited. Eileen did not miss a single dance. She was enjoying herself to the fullest. As she sat down to catch her breath after another round, Frank walked up to her. "Is your next dance open?" he asked softly. She smiled at him. "You're such a talented dancer," he added. "Unfortunately, my wife doesn't dance, but I like it very much." "I know you dance very well because I watched you," she said. "Did you?" he asked, surprised. "But why?" She didn't reply. Then the music began and they stood up. Frank placed his arm around her waist, took her hand in his, and pressed her fingers. She lifted her big eyes to him, then turned away. She was frightened by him, by his powerful personality. "It's nice dancing with you," he went on, and added suddenly, "Tell me, do you like me?" "You know I do," she said quietly. "I like you so much," he continued, "and I really need someone like you. I want to talk to you. I want to be with you. You're so wonderful." At first, Eileen couldn't say anything. "We mustn't," she finally managed to say in a low, shaking voice. She could hardly stand on her feet. Frank understood. He knew the morals of the society they lived in, but also he couldn't hold back his feelings. Then one day Eileen came to visit him. As they sat together in the living room, he suddenly drew nearer and kissed her on the lips. "I love you," he said. "I'm sure of it now. Do you love me?" "Yes," she replied. "I know it's wrong, but I do." Soon it became obvious to Frank that he had to do something about his relationship with Eileen. 10 years earlier, he had been as passionate about his wife as he was about Eileen now. Also, he knew that she was madly in love with him. In fact, he never understood why so many people forced themselves to only stay with one person if they didn't want to. Eventually, he rented a house on North 10th Street, where they soon began to meet in secret. 9. At that time, Frank's influence as a financier had become very strong. Now he was able to pull off big deals. One such offer was made to him by Stenner, the city treasurer. The plan was to loan Frank money from the city treasury so that he could buy the North Pennsylvania Company's streetcar line. For this work, if successful, Frank would receive a generous 20% of the loan. Stenner's friends later hoped to use the loan money to expand the line, then issue a large block of stock and hypothecate it with a reliable bank. That way, the city would eventually get its money back, and the resourceful gentleman would pocket all the profit from the line. Within a year, Frank had successfully managed the North Pennsylvania deal for Stenner's friends. Also, he and Stenner teamed up to buy the 17th and 19th Street lines together. With the money he had made, Frank could afford a lot of things. He dreamed of a huge street railway system that would cover the whole city, and that he would control it himself.
Get more stories in the EWA app. Read, listen to the audiobooks of different genres, Learn new words in one click. Improve your English with EWA. Check out app ewa.com.
By the summer of 1871, at the age of 34, Frank Algernon Cowperwood owned a business that was estimated at around $2 million. Like a spider, he had placed himself into a complex net of connections, and he was controlling every thread of it. 10. In October 1871, a storm came out of a clear sky. The Great Chicago Fire burned the city to the ground. Many banks and commercial houses closed their doors. This affected other cities that worked with Chicago. Stock owners hurried to throw their stocks on the exchange, hoping to raise cash. The banks called their loans, which produced a financial panic. As soon as Frank heard the news, he realized that he was in great danger. Several banks, including his father's, were holding his securities worth hundreds of thousands of dollars at high interest. Moreover, some brokerage companies were his creditors for another $200,000. Of course, they would want their money. But more than that, Frank was worried about his illegal business with Stenner. The treasurer was involved with him to the amount of $500,000 already. If the public learned that the city treasurer had opened an account in Frank's company and paid so much money into it, it would be a huge scandal. Stenner would most surely be arrested and put in prison, and there was no chance Frank could get away with it. Stenner had loaned him a lot of money from the city treasury at low interest already, and Frank was very much aware of where this money came from. What could he do to not go bankrupt within a few days? If only he had more time. His first thought was to contact Stenner and ask him for more money to pay off his debts. But the treasurer was out of town, so Frank headed to Butler's house. As they sat together in his study, Frank told him about his problem. "I have been carrying plenty of street railway stocks," he began, "not only for myself but for Mr. Stenner and his friends. The money mainly came from the city treasury. I know it's wrong, and I admit that I'm just as guilty of it as Mr. Stenner. Personally, I have borrowed quite a lot of money from him. But if I go bankrupt now, it will injure not only my business, but also the interests of many other important people, including your own. In this situation, I can't manage without your help," he concluded. "How much has Stenner invested with you?" asked Butler. $500,000, replied Frank. "That's a lot of money," said Butler, surprised. "But I'll see what I can do for you, Frank. I've always liked you. Now I need to meet some people. I'll be back home by midnight. By then, things should clear out a little." "Thank you, sir," replied Frank. Now all he could do was wait. 11. Mr. Butler and his son Owen got in a carriage together. They headed to the house of Mr. Mollenhauer, a coal dealer and one of the most powerful people in the city. On their way, Mr. Butler told Owen everything about Cowperwood's troubles. "Good Lord," the young man exclaimed, "I can't believe Stenner got away with $500,000 like that." "I don't know what happens next," said Mr. Butler. "For now I need to warn Mollenhauer and Simpson and protect my loans." "But father, don't you see?" Owen asked. "Cowperwood has been wasting Stenner's money. Now that he is in trouble, he wants you to pull him out. He moves Stenner around where he pleases. You'd be silly if you did as he wants." "Well, I always thought he was clever, but not as clever as that," said Butler. "You're right. He has seriously compromised the city treasury and my own interests, buying up those streetcar lines that politicians would really like for themselves. Though I might leave him with that loan of 100,000 I have given him some time ago." "Well, Father," Owen said, "if you want to help him out, you're free to do so, but I don't understand why you should. He's not a bad man, and I see why you like him. But honestly, if I were you, I'd reject him, and even call that loan of yours in the morning. Also, make Mollenhauer and Simpson talk to Stenner, so that he won't give Cowperwood any more money. I'm sure Frank will soon ask him for another loan." Upon second thought, Butler decided to follow his son's advice. He talked to Mollenhauer, who for his part later warned Stenner against loaning any more money from the city treasury to Frank. The two men then spoke to Simpson. Of course, they'd be happy to do whatever they could to keep up the price of stocks, but there was no guarantee that they could support the market and give Frank enough time to get back on his feet. In the end, they chose to protect their own loans rather than assist Frank in any way. 12. In the morning, Mr. Butler received an anonymous letter. "Your daughter Eileen is seeing Frank A. Cowperwood," it read. "Watch the house at 931 North 10th Street to see for yourself." It was written by a girl who lived next to that house and was jealous of Eileen's carefree life. Butler was extremely worried and confused. Could it really be, he thought? Could he be lying to me all this time? He was in his study when Frank arrived to ask him about his loan. "I must ask you to give me my money back immediately," Butler said coldly. "Very well," replied Frank calmly. "I was hoping for some more time, but that's all right. I'll send it over right away." As soon as Frank left the room, Butler jumped out of his chair. "That dirty dog!" he shouted. He had never been so mad in his life. "I'll break him. I'll send him to prison, I will." He went to talk to his daughter. The girl denied everything, but she was so nervous that Mr. Butler understood at once that the letter told the truth. Later that day, Eileen went to see Frank. She told him about her father's suspicions. "We can't see each other in that house anymore," decided Frank. "But don't worry. I'll rent another house somewhere else." The same day, another letter of similar contents was sent to Frank's wife. The only difference was that the name of Frank's lover had not been mentioned. But for some reason, Lillian understood at once who she was. She had felt that Frank didn't love her anymore. But what was she going to do? What would people say? What would happen to her children? So she decided to wait. She was told that Frank's business was about to fail, all because of the Chicago fire. Her husband was too busy to explain. He had been caught in a trap and was fighting for his life. 13. All this time, Eileen had been very worried about Frank. At first, her father wanted to send her off to Europe so that she could forget about the financier. But then he decided he needed evidence of their romantic relationship. So he hired a private detective to follow Frank for a few days. Within a week, the detective located the new house where Frank and Eileen met. Then he brought Mr. Butler there. The man saw his daughter and lost his temper. "What a shame," he shouted. "I am very disappointed to see you in a place like this, Eileen."
Stay with us for part 3.
The more you listen, the faster you'll become fluent in English. Subscribe to our channel for more English stories to improve your English. And now, listen to another audiobook.